We're almost done. We're almost done. Got 2 episodes left. This one and the next one. In this episode, we are covering the cape, the pelt, t-shirt, tabard, pretty much anything sewing related is going to be in this episode. Before the video starts though, quick announcement. I just hit 10,000 subscribers. As of recording at least. I was not expecting to hit it this fast, but I will do a video to properly celebrate that later at the end of this series. Not in my build, but in the Zealot build, which will come after this. That's going to get truncated down to 1 episode, and that'll be a special 10,000 subscriber video. So anyway, that said, let's get building. I started with the cape. This hangs in a very specific way on the character, and I wanted to get it as close as possible, all the way down to the ripples in the fabric. To do this, I grabbed the fabric from 2 ends, and tried holding it like it was mounted to the character. I then took note of the excess, trimmed that off, and repeated that process over and over until I whittled the fabric down to the shape that I needed. Alright, so it took a while, but we now have our, I'm not even going to get this in frame, our completely cut out shape that we need for this cape. You can see that it's very oddly shaped. What I had to do was try it on, cut a little bit off, try it on, cut a little bit off. Everything that I could do to get it as close as I could to the same exact folds that we're seeing in the game. I think we got what we needed. So what I can do now that I have it, I can do some measurements and figure out how big the chaos arrow is supposed to be on the back. I'm going to print that out, pan her on. I laid the cape down on the table and then started getting an idea of how big I wanted the chaos arrows to be. I brought up my tape measure and compared my reference images. I came to a size that would fit the cape similar to the character in-game. And with that figured out, I went to my computer to make a template to print out, of which I seem to have lost the file for since this build. But I had printed the template out to scale and started taping those pieces of paper together to cut out my template. And with the template ready, I taped it down to the cape and started tracing the outline with a marker. I then grabbed some black acrylic paint, some brushes, and filled in that outline. This took a while to do and was pretty relaxing. It felt kind of like filling in a giant coloring book. Once I was done, I set it aside to start working on the pelt. Okay, so last night I had done the cape. I am still waiting on things to come in the mail, and still going to make a Joann's run. So I'm kind of at a standstill at the moment. So the only thing I can really do is work on that cape and this pelt a little bit. This is going to end up being the same exact process as the cape. I have more than enough fabric, but obviously I need to cut it all to shape. This will be the same exact process. Shoulder plate's going to sit right here. And I have to slowly cut it to size little by little. So if I start here, maybe cut out that just enough. Obviously that's sticking out too far on the arm. That's going to have to come up a couple inches on the side. And then I'll shape it, probably bring this in just a little bit, but not a lot, because with the belt, it's going to tuck that all in there. But at the same time, I don't want it to be too bulky, you know? So slowly keep bringing it in until I get something that I want. Otherwise, I got to buy a whole new one. So I don't want to do that. It's gonna make it harder to do any kind of cutting. My range of mobility is gonna be greatly reduced. Right shoulder, right shoulder, okay. This is difficult because everything I'm looking at here, be it the camera and my mirror, is inverted, and here's the correct way. So I'm trying to like mentally flip it. This is going to sit more off to the side here, which we are now getting the shape that we want. Getting there at least. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Alright, now is it perfectly round in the back? He's got his arm out to the side. So I want to bring this corner up just a little bit. Alright, I want to say this is probably about as good as we're going to get. Should we bring that in a little more? But I think this will work. Now for cleanup. Once I had the shape that I wanted, I went around and cleaned up the edges, and then I brought out my hand vacuum to collect all the loose fibers all over the place from cutting all that fur. I then moved on to making the skull clips that hold the cape onto the chest. These are cast in foam clay, using an old hot glue mold that I have used for various other projects. These needed a little more depth, however, since they needed to be full skulls. So I used some 10mm foam and traced out layers for what felt would be the right shape for the skull when glued together. Once they were all cut out, I used some contact cement and press them all together. I then brought out my Dremel and sanded down the shape that I needed. Alright, so I'm getting close to the end of what I can do with these right now. What I had done was that I had used some extra layers of foam, added some layers to extend the head a little bit, carved it all smooth, rounded it all off. Then what I did, I flattened the bottoms out and I put everything on to kind of get an idea of how I wanted the angle to rest on the actual piece. And just to be safe, I put an F and a B. You can make it out on the foreheads of both of them, so I know which one's the front, which one's the back. Obviously that'll go away once it gets painted. And then I carved out a channel in the back of both of them for these. Now the idea is going to be that if this is warm enough yet, throw some hot glue in here, put in the ends of these two inside, and then I'm going to carve out a similar channel in the chest piece. Same size, same angle that I want. And what we'll end up doing is then this will act as almost like a button for the cape. So I'll have an opening in the cape, just enough for this to slide through, kind of like a buttonhole. And then this will go down inside, this will go inside of the chest piece, wrap around inside, and then it's going to click on to a clip. Technically the skull, or the glue in the skull, is what's really going to be holding all the weight of that cape. I mean, cape's not going to weigh a lot, so really as long as nobody is a jerk and pulls on my cape and tries to pull it off, I should be fine. But you never know how people are going to be at a convention. I've had some people be very inappropriate to me in the past, so I kind of have trust issues now with convention goers. I mean, it's something that cosplayers seem to be very well aware of, but as far as con goers go, you kind of deal with all types. Most people are fine. Most people don't have any problems. There's always that one bad apple, you know. It was with my Raynor suit that you can see back there. You notice he's got a giant cod piece on it, and someone thought it'd be hilarious if they went up and grabbed my robo wiener. I was not happy. I mean, for one, you never touch someone else's costume anywhere without their consent, because you never know, especially if that person's going into a costume contest or something, you never know how these costumes can be barely held together sometimes. And one wrong bump, rub, pull, the whole thing can come apart. Bad enough that wardrobe malfunctions happen in the backstage while we're waiting to go out as is. Last thing we really want is any kind of malfunction to happen even farther before that. So, you know, play it safe, leave us alone, and no inappropriate touching. Alright, that should be good. There are some gaps still. You can see I did that spot there. I honestly don't care, but I will seal it and everything too. Another reason I'm not going to do any full attaching is because while I can probably use these loops to kind of like help maintain everything as well in the meantime on the inside, but at the same time I also need this exposed so that I can spray it down with primer. So I will seal this like I'm going to seal everything else in the armor set, and then I'll be able to take this out, hang it, spray it down, then come in, hand paint it, and then I'll do all the final touches. I guess. I don't know. I still don't know what I'm doing. I'm doing this crap for like almost 10 years now, and I still have no idea what I'm doing. I've been winging it the whole time. And from there, I carved out the openings for the skull pins to mount through. I then brought out my cape and matched those holes up with where I wanted the cape mounted. Marked and cut those spots open, then brought it over to my sewing machine where I sewed around those openings to make sure they never ripped or teared when the skull pins would be later mounted. Then I gave it all a quick test fit to begin working on mounting the pelt and fine-tuning the cape. So for my birthday this year, my girlfriend got me a new mannequin. I've been in dire need of one for a while, but this is going to help me out a lot. So while we're at, I'll show you what I've been doing here. So we have the little mount that I have made for pauldron, and for the pelt I sewed a tiny little hole as well to hold that in, like so. Pauldron fits on top, and then this doesn't go anywhere because the bottom half will then be wrapped around by my belt, so that's all good. Right now I am dealing with a two-piece problem. Well, not really a problem, just something I need to work on. So in the back of the cape, I can pull this through, we have our skull that's supposed to hold this corner of the cape. I need to hand sew and trim some things to get this to wrap around it right so that you can also see the skull at all times. And then on top of that, I have this back half which needs to more or less fit, but not also obstruct that. So it's a bit messy right now. It's going to take some fiddling to do, but that's my goal right now, get these two just right. This is very easy to clip on, put it on, press down. Getting it off is a little harder. You got to go from both the inside and out. So this is a piece that you'll be putting on, this and the pelt you'll be putting on before you put the chest piece on. And then if you ever need to take it off for whatever reason, just reach in underneath like that, pop it off. Pretty good. I'm not too worried about this having to move too much. So it does move a little bit, but where it's at, it doesn't have to worry too much about actual movement. All right, now I get to deal with this. I started with the pelt, doing what I had previously done with the cape, cut out openings for the skull pins, and sewn the fabric around those openings. I then went back to the cape and started hand sewing the fabric over the left shoulder. This was to tackle two issues. Issue 1, I worried about the cape drooping off the shoulder. Holding it tighter would help keep it on the shoulder. In issue 2, I really wanted to maintain the ripples in the fabric that are there on the in-game character, and sewing these at the shoulder would help hold those folds, especially in the back center. I then moved on to making the tabard. This used an elastic pleather from Amazon. I mocked it up to the chest to figure out my dimensions, then I took it over to my table and cut it to size. I then used some nylon strips and pinned those to the top of the tabard and took them over to my sewing machine and sewed those on. These will be the mounting points for the tabard later on. And with that all sewn, I had marked the bottom and began drawing out the rips in the tabard that are on the in-game character. And with that all drawn, I cut it all out. Alright, so there's another piece of detail I have to do on this chest piece. So not only are there suspenders that go down, but there's also a strap that goes from here and around. It kind of hangs down a little bit lower here below the chest piece, and then it circles back around back up to here. It's a very weird piece. I gathered as many reference materials as I could, or reference photos, I guess, to try and figure out where this all goes, because with the cape and the pelt and all that, a lot of stuff just kind of like magically disappears underneath it all. So with enough photos, I figure I can do the same and make things disappear in certain places as well. So the way this is going to work is right here where the clip for the cape starts or mounts, that's where I'm going to have it stop. It's going to, or start. And then it'll wrap around here where it does on the model. And then it disappears again somewhere back here. So I'm going to have it stop again where the back clip for the cape stops. That might be maybe his way of holding the cape. That makes sense if you think about it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not saying that's exactly how it is, but that's what I'm doing. And then speaking of the suspenders in the front, they also kind of disappear somewhere underneath the cape and pelt. So my guess is I'm going to have it hook up in the same spot here, just with everything else that's going to be right here. And then I'll probably do the same thing somewhere on this side for this. I could maybe take it the whole way up to these, where these start, and then bring it down. That's possible too. I don't think it matters. I'd probably rather start here. That way there's less of a chance for anything to go out of whack and out of way. The farther I go up, the more of a chance things have the chance to come out, even though I don't think that'll happen, but I'd rather do what the in-game model is doing and have it start here and then go down, because of cape and everything right there. I don't think you're going to see any farther up, so I think it'll be okay. Hi, Sable. Yeah. Sable says hi. Alright, back to work. So I used some scrap paper and taped them together around the chest. Once I had the entire path taped together, I then freehanded the path of this leather strip. And with that all drawn out, I brought the paper template back over to my table, refined it, and then cut it out. And with the template ready, I brought out my elastic pleather and traced my pattern. Once traced out, I cut my pattern free and began pinning my corners to be sewn. I then brought that over to my sewing machine, took care of those edges. Once finished, I brought it back over to my mannequin to see how it looked. It looked alright, but I did end up redoing this towards the end of the build before mounting. I don't have footage of this, but I refined the shape a little bit with a more accurate gray pleather fabric. So next we're doing the tunic. Originally I was going to be cheap and figured I'd buy one instead. But as you can tell, I bought a size too small. Shows off my belly a little too much. That's not the only other issue though, it is also too short. I have to stand way back. So I don't know what order any of this stuff is going to be coming out in, so I will just explain again that these guys wear their belts in the traditional fashion, which is right here at the belly button. Not down where your pants normally are today, but the old way, up here. So, because at first I didn't realize that the belt was up here. I thought it was down here, and I thought the shirt was down farther, but the belt is up here. But comparing to the images, the shirt still needs to be down to at least below my pockets, which is like right here. So I need probably another 5 to 6 inches on the shirt, and it needs to be tapered. Anyway, it's gonna have a V in the front and in the back, and kind of comes down to the sides. So I need to add that. It's also short sleeved, so I'll have to hack this off. So much modification. What I'm going to do is just rip this thing up and turning it into a template for the actual thing. I am by no means a sewing expert, so this will be fun.
A few days later.
So the last shirt that I bought obviously was way too tight. Went around to Joann's, Hobby Lobby, Michael's, even Walmart, anywhere I could find any kind of fabric. Nobody had what I wanted. Not the right color, right type of fabric, none of it. It was nuts. So I was like, oh, I'll just order it online. Joann's was sold out online too. So what I did, I bought another one. Believe it or not, this thing is a 4X. I'm fat, but I'm not that fat. I mean, normally I only buy 2Xs because like they're a little big when I buy them, but after I wash them a few times, they shrink down to what's comfortable. Bless you, Sable. Sable's got the sniffles apparently. That's what you get for rolling in dirt. Anyway, yes, so this is exactly the material that I want, the exact color that I want. Obviously, it is not exactly what I want in terms of the pattern, but that's fine. I have a sewing machine, and there's a little extra fabric on this. I mean, it is a little big, which is good. So I'm gonna split this down the middle, sew it, do some buttons, then do the 2 lines that need to be here. So line in the back, I'll have to sew in as well, which really won't be visible after I learned about how this metal belt holder is held in place, because there's a difference between irregular enemies and the Scab Captain. The back part of the suspenders isn't held from the back center, even though the clips for it are there. They're not attached to anything. Instead, in some of the pictures I've seen, when his cape is flipped up over and he's bent forward, there's actually a piece similar to what I have running over the shoulders that runs from the center of this up to the center of the back. So that's what we'll be making, which means I can probably skip sewing the center seam in the back, save myself some time. Yep, so let's get to it. So I had split the shirt down the front center and took it over to my sewing machine to stitch, with the assistance of Sable. Man, is she always clinging. I then threw on the shirt real quick to figure out where I wanted my buttons. I only needed 2 or 3 to hold it closed, and they would never be seen because of the tabard that will be in front. I then took it over to my sewing machine, cut the openings for the buttons, and then gave them a sewing. And then I hand stitched the buttons. Okay, so we ran into a small little snag that I should have realized from the start. So I did this intentionally. I only did the top 3 buttons, no need to do the bottom, because where this thing is going to go is right there, over top of that. So I don't need to go below it, because there's no point. On top of that, my belt will then be over top of this, and in between this and the belt will be a leather tabard. So really I only need a little bit of this to hang out, and that's fine. Now there's one small problem, which isn't a huge problem, but more of a comfort kind of thing, and it is that cutting this down the middle, taking about a 1/2 inch off both to do the trim, to do everything for the buttons, had an obvious side effect, and it brought my center line forward just a little bit. I can counter this by doing that center seam in the back, like I said earlier, but I don't want to do that because I'm lazy, so I'm just going to do this. I'll just leave the button here, and that's fine. That'll give me a little bit more room down here. The tabard in the front center will still cover everything. Actually, the top 2 still makes me feel comfortable. So just take out the bottom one. I'll keep it from being too tight because I have a belly, and then the tabard's going to cover everything up anyway. It gives us a little bit more of a wider floof for when the tabard comes down over the belt. Give it a little bit more separation. That'll be fine. Yeah, so I guess I'll do the sleeves next. Shouldn't have taken this off. And we'll go from there. Hopefully once the sleeves are done, then I can get back onto, I put that back too, but the shoulder piece that then works on the side, I can start working on the mounting hardware for that. All right, back to work. I started by mocking up how long I wanted the sleeves to be, and then took that off and then trimmed them. I then pinned the sleeves for what would eventually be a double fold, similar to what you see on a normal t-shirt. Fold once to sew, fold again, sew again. I then used the leftover sleeve ends and folded and sewn those into strips. I used these to make some fancy foldy bits along the shoulder and down the sleeves. And that's that for this episode. If you want to see all these pieces permanently attached to the armor, you have to wait for the next episode where we'll be covering painting and then we'll be finally putting everything together. See you in the next one.